Our speaker is Miss Helen, and I'm sure 90% of the room here is here for her, so can't wait to hear what you have to say.
I talk slower than I used to, but I still talk. And you know I'm a Southerner, of course. And otherwise, New Yorkers, I tell them, slow down. So I can hear them. The fellowship, though, is wonderful tonight for me. First time I've been back in quite a while here. I have a home group near me, and I'm a little bit older than I used to be, but I'm still sober and I'm still in meetings. I even volunteered. All of a sudden our group needed immigrant rep, and no one volunteered, and somehow my hand went up. What you gonna do? Anyway, this fellowship, I even thought about this and read this book again, this part of it, and it's about fellowship. If I move my card, which I did, and maybe I'll have to get back to it. A vision for you. There it is. I'm not going to read this, but you'll know where it is. In my book, it's page 152, if you want to see it. And you're struggling, because some of us do. Not necessarily just because we're new, just because it's called life. I call it that. The other single word I use is a trouble, the word trouble. I don't have to explain it. You would know it's trouble of some kind. That cuts down my words sometimes. And it says here, we got to the place where loneliness just as you do. Then he will laugh either with alcohol or without it. And the substitute. What is the substitute in the book? I bet you all know. Is the, yes, there is substitute. It's vastly more than that. It is a fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous. There you find release from care, boredom, and worry. Unless you had too much pride to reach out. That does happen sometimes. And I arrived at my first AA meeting. It was called the Chambly Group. It is not there anymore on Chambly Dunwoody Road. My sister-in-law lived next door to me, and she saw me drinking. She knew I was drinking. I didn't hide it very well. I didn't seem to. I don't know why I couldn't. I've heard stories about putting liquor in the bathroom bowl. It never occurred to me until I got to an AA meeting. I put it in the clothes hamper. It wasn't hidden. Anyway, she knew I was sick, and I kind of liked that word. She called the central office, and they sent us some material, And one of them is AA for you. And I had a drink that day. So I read them, and I looked at the 12 questions, and I said yes to all of them but one. And that one asked, does your drinking interfere with your job? I didn't work. So I said, no. And when I got honest, took a few years, not a few years, maybe one, I went back to it and filled the whole thing out because I did have a job. Had 3 children and a husband and a home. And I got in trouble with everything in my life, practically. But I hung on him. And sometimes, I think you mentioned that miracle somewhere in here. I was reading earlier that they still exist. There it is. The age of miracles is still with us. Our own recovery proves that. And I smile when I say it because I can't prove it and you can't disprove it. See, can't argue with that one because I stopped arguing a long time ago. I still have opinions. You might hear a few of them. And when I arrived at that meeting, there were no women, I call it women. That's 50-something years ago now. The men, and it was an open meeting, and the wives, they brought their wives with them, and they came over and talked with me after the meeting. But there were a lot of laughter in that group. Do you find that is, what do we think about that laughter? But that was my first AA meeting. And I thought, what are they laughing about? They're not like me. I didn't see anything to laugh about. And that was my first thought of that one. And guess what? They asked me to read how it works. Did you know that how it works? I was trying to fish it out. And is 5 pages long. When you're reading it and when you're new at your first meeting. And so my sister-in-law stayed up all night praying for me to not back out. So she didn't look very good. And I wasn't drinking, and I still was younger and looked pretty good. And they thought I brought her. Have you had that happen? So I kept going, though. There's something about it when I got there that I wanted to keep coming back, even though I didn't like the laughter. So I told the children I was going to AA, and I told my mother-in-law I was going to AA, and they piled in a car with me, and we drove to the Skyline Group. And it was when it was on Skyline Street. So I thought after the meeting, they were, oh, it's wonderful. Isn't it wonderful, Helen? Oh, wonderful. And I said, yeah, they are. And we are. I put me with this family, though. Mother-in-law, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, father-in-law. Imagine that. Support. So let me go back a ways. I got to the point when I was drinking that I had tried things. I tried different booze, tried beer, trying to find the thing that I wouldn't drink too much. And by the way, I never did. So I'd gone to the library to pick up books on alcoholism, but I liked that word when I got to AA. I liked the word alcoholic better than I did drunk. But now I don't hide from that word. So I said I might as well drink. I can't stop. I've tried whatever I knew to do. I read those books about it. It didn't tell me how to stay sober. I didn't see the book on that shelf in my library, but I think we put some on now. People were kind of ashamed of their alcoholic in those days. And so was I. I didn't want anyone to know. But I never stopped coming to AA. I didn't know what a sponsor was. So she came over and told me she would be my sponsor. Her name was Elizabeth. And she called me. I had her phone number, but she called me. And she would say, let's go to a meeting and have a cup of coffee. And sometimes that's why I went, because she put it that way. If the newcomer is listening, you'll find that kind of fellowship. Anyway, she stuck with me. And I drank again after about 2 or 3 months, or 4. I came in AA in December and I got sober and had my last drink in September. I'm 57 years sober. My sponsor took me to mostly speaker meetings because I wanted to sit in the back row and I wanted, and they went up and down the lines in my day. Lots of things like that. AA hasn't changed, but some of the things we do, like this, and a few other things. But I don't have to do that if I don't want to. It isn't in this book. Did you ever read it in this book? Well, anyway, came over one day when I'd been drinking that night, and my husband let her in. And I didn't get out of bed when she got there. Tell her I'm sick, and I was. And she said, tell her I'm coming to the bedroom if she doesn't get up. I got up quickly then. And I thought about that every time I drink again. There she was. And she was trying to help. And what was she getting out of it? Another sick alcoholic. That's what she was. I didn't know about that yet. I got to know about it. And some things, though, as I finally got sober, by the way, in September 12th. So, but I had an attitude. Do you ever had one of those? They started odd thing to me because we never clapped. See, I think of it every time you clapped when she introduced me, right? And that's what the Roswell group started doing. I was a member there for a while. There was no Roswell group when I first came in, but then finally we got one. And I thought, I was sitting there, somebody from California brought that to us, I bet, or New York. Everything starts in New York or California. And so they started clapping at everything, almost. When they gave out chips, when they, whatever they introduced, whatever they read. And I didn't like it. That was a change. That was a change, a big change to me. And so I spoke up in that meeting. I said, I don't know why everyone's clapping. It's bad for the discussion leader. And I was next to the last one to say something. And they closed the meeting and they clapped. Do we make big deals out of small ones? Yes. And so I walked up to the secretary and I said, we've got to do something about this. He said, live and let live. I didn't like it, but what choice did I have? They were going to do it. But there is a way. And I'd like to tell you about this one. I love my stories. A guy moved here and he started a meeting in, was it Dunwoody maybe? And he kept asking me to come because he's heard the story about the clapping. He said, you would enjoy my meeting. Why don't you come over and visit me? And he kept asking, so I did. They clapped at everything. He He looked over at me and smiled. There is different ways we can accept things. And think about that sometimes. I end up talking about a door opening, and because it suits me. When the door opened, just look at me going to an AA meeting. I was hoping she'd forget the next morning and she'd change her mind, not take me. See, the door had opened and I walked in, even though I felt the way I felt about it. And I've missed in the early years quite a few messages. And I try not to miss them now. I just lighten up with the trouble. That's the word I use. Because it always seems to work out. Eventually, maybe not my way, but it works out. And I have a sentence, I get sentences that I use for me, and I pass them on so they might be yours if you like them. And I say, I'm not so different. I am not so different. And every time an AA member or an alcoholic talks to me, I listen and I identify. No matter what they're saying, I identify, whether they trap or not. And I thought about that because I did keep it simple. And it was my time to help others. So my sponsor pushed me a little bit. And there was a new girl in the Briarwood Rd, her first meeting. And women had told me they would stand by me, they'd always be there, and isn't that wonderful? And when she came in, they all went over to talk to her. I said, wait a minute. They said they would always be back me, and look, they're gone. It took me a while to pick up on that one. And I didn't really want to, but I walked up to her the next meeting at the same group and spoke with her. I didn't want to, but I did. Selfish, self-centered, does that ring any bells? Does for me. I take a look at it. I look at my history and say that didn't work. And I wait for something, for a door to open. And I'll get messages about something that I needed to know. And see, I didn't know if I took a drink, I was on another one. And another one. And a kitty who brought me here tonight, I about stopped driving that night. And if I want to, I think that if I just sit down and pick up the book and remember the past, how I looked at it. See, I got sober on the second step, and I didn't go any further. That took care of my drinking, though. It was the drink on the second step. Insanity. I didn't do much else, though. I went to meetings. I started helping people because I needed to, I guess. And I still wanted to have it my way. And one of my sentences has come about I want to act or think the same way when I lose or when I win. How about that one? I'm working on it. I'm not there yet. But I have that sentence, and I know it's simple, and I know it comes up. And one day, it will be real. Otherwise, how did my hand shoot up for intergroup? And anyway, so I had to start on the steps, so it took a while. It doesn't matter how long, who's counting. I had to go forward because I didn't have the kind of peace that I heard about others, AA members, in the group. Not much peace. I thought, in fact, I ran away from home, sober. Went to California, 6 months. And turned around finally and said, that's not it. I didn't drink. And at least I had a chance to change my mind and to get better if I didn't take a drink. So, you know the program does work. You know, don't you? Okay. The newcomer might not know after me talking, but they'll see my white hair, I hope. And I heard something, it's a joke. I don't tell jokes much because I don't remember them. So this lady, let's say in Michigan, where does it snow a lot? Pick one. Minnesota. So it was snowing, and she needed some dog food because she might be shut in. And I might go horse too. And he had a parrot up front in the store that she came for food for her dog. And she walked in the door, slowed up a little bit, and he says, "You are so ugly." And she didn't like that. She went over to the guy and said, I'm not buying anything here. You ought to be ashamed you've taught that parrot those words. She left without buying anything. But it was the closest place. And it was snowing, and she knew she had to go back. And he, before she got there, he picked him up, shook him, and said, if you ever say that again, I'm going to put you out in the cold. Set him down. When she came in, she slowed up when she got in front of him. And he said, you know. I kind of learned something from that one. I heard a newcomer, a year old, in sobriety, talk, not in George's talk. He said 6 times in his hour speaking, and he said, I didn't know. You don't know until you know. And there's still some things I don't know. And that's why I try and listen to messages. And even the people here that are snoozing still say, for they couldn't. That might have been the best now they had in days. See, that's the way not to make people angry. Lighten up and get around it. And sometimes even my son will say to his sister, do you know what she said? It's following what people say, what the AA book says. If you're following it and want to follow it, you know it might be a drag and all that talk, and somebody says, that person says the same thing every meeting. And I thought, wait a minute, I didn't know how to talk back on that one. And I just stayed quiet. I don't always stay quiet, though, see. So it can go with surrender or humility, you think? So I started going through the steps. I did not take my inventory. I took my husband's inventory. I put it on paper and gave it to my sponsor. And she read it, and she said, it's pretty good that you did that. It helps you to do that, I guess. Put it on paper. And she said, but this is not exactly what AA chose for you to do. Doesn't fit the scale. But I couldn't do it with her because I put her on a pedestal and I just couldn't. Because she didn't do what I did. She didn't do the things I did. How could I even admit it? And that reminded me of another story. One of my sponsees said she gave her story in the car, and they sit in the car for privacy, because both of them had people at home, and she was taking her fifth step, and she talked it up, and then she looked over at her sponsor, and she was asleep. That's how interesting stories can be. I understand that one. I still, though, think that audience participation is always good. You know, as long as there's no interruptions, if you know what I mean. I go to my group conscious and I'm trying to fix them because they talk over each other, they argue, and that's part of AA because we can, but there's other ways of doing it. Waiting, and the door will open, and it'll come the way it should, if I'm listening and behaving. I tell people once in a while, some of my sponsees, I say, did you behave? So I used that word when I went to the bank to worked at central office, 45 years. Anyway, my deposit right almost next door to us. And stand in line downtown Atlanta, and everyone, most of them I went to, thank you for your patience. And I heard it for years, because there were usually lines. And this girl, I'd gone to her, I kind of found out her name. And she said, when I was standing there for 15 minutes, she said, thank you for your patience. And I said, you don't have to tell me that. I'm not patient, but I know how to behave. Well, do you get that one? For the ones who are sleepy, don't be sorry you came. I'm glad you did. I saw some old people that I used to know and see fairly often. And some of them are still in touch with me. When I retired, it took me a year to adjust. and a couple of people had told me, and you'll have more phone calls, you'll have people dropping by. They were right. And they're still right. And I thought about being so lonely in a family of 5. How could you be lonely in a family of 5? Well, it's spiritual. It's got to be. Somehow I got there. And so I look out my front window and look at the trees and feel freedom. I don't know if that's a good word for the feelings that come when there's peace and serenity. Just look out the window, and it doesn't last long. Can't hold on to it, but it comes back. Just like trying not to drink. I did try not to drink. But I have peace and serenity if I'm not having trouble. And I tried, I'll give you 3 more minutes so you can go home, go to sleep. See, that's the laughter. It's not picking on. It's love. It comes out love. It really does. And I feel it. So I'm done. Thank you.
First I slept, and then I crept to a hope-filled dream. You rescued me, and finally, waking there I see. I look into love's window for a soul that's meant for me. Takes me where the promises are real. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slow, we get just what we need. On a broad highway, stride for stride, we walk eternally. Look into love's window for a heart that beats for me. Takes me where the promises are